It's true, I have a confession to make. When I arrived at the Louvre Museum, I had no idea what fundraising was. And in fact, nor did the Louvre, especially not regarding fundraising towards individuals. And when I arrived, I had this strong feeling that fundraising towards individuals had a lot to do with a universal value, which is seduction. I'm not going to talk about present times and stories you hear in the press about seduction. I want to talk about seduction as a powerful tool of persuasion. Basically, it's knowing someone's desire, being able to adapt to someone's desire, to meet this specific desire, and not only with words, but also through emotion. And this is what I tried to do for the museum, creating a new experience. And this experience was getting involved with the museum in another way, getting involved, having the desire to get involved financially. It was very challenging. When I arrived 7 years ago at the Louvre, corporate sponsorship was starting to rise. And there was absolutely no fundraising towards individuals. So we had to be creative. We had to take risks too, because we had to start from scratch, from nothing. We have no real database to work on. We had a friends group, Society of Friends of the Louvre, but the museum had no access to this database. And the context was not really favorable, because as you know, the Louvre is a state-funded museum. It implies that it relies mainly on state subsidies. And through state subsidies, it means people paying taxes. So when you would ask someone, could you give money to the museum? They would say, but we already do through our taxes. We already pay taxes, and we pay the entrance to the museum. So we were really coming from very, very, very far. Some of you might say, well, you're the Louvre. It means you've great assets to engage individuals. First of all, you have so many visitors. It's probably the most visited museum in the world. There is very high satisfaction rates, so you can engage people from their experience as a visitor, which is a good one. And I won't talk about the fact that the Louvre is such a universal museum. It can talk to everybody, and most of the visitors are foreign visitors. And something you might not know, which was a great asset too, is that the French people are among the most generous in the world. So lots of great assets to start with, but we were really facing a big problem on the way people were perceiving the museum. Seduction is about creating a closer link, reducing the distance, and the people visiting the museum felt that it was really oversized. First, when you arrive in a hall which looks a little bit like Grand Station, Central Station in New York. It's bustling with people all around. It's a huge museum, and it doesn't look like it needs money. It looks quite wealthy. So we had to start from on this very loose relationship that we had to build on. And a major problem we had to face was the lack of experience in giving money to a museum. This has to do very much with the difference between the Latin culture and the Anglo-Saxon culture. It's obvious that for American visitors that they can make a gift of money to the museum. In France and in other European and mainly Latin countries, this is not obvious at all. So we had to work on that. And first thing we did was really make a survey to understand better the perception, the intuition people had about what giving to the museum would be. Most of them said, oh, it's gifts of works of art. And we were, oh, that's great, but we need money to real money, cash money. And we realized how much the public was unaware of the financial needs of a museum. They had no clue of the economic model of the museum and the fact it could look out for private support. And if they knew they could donate to a museum, then regarding the Louvre, they would say, my gift would be a drop in the ocean. They were very aware of the insignificance of their gift. And some of them really were aware of the fact, when you talk about being a patron of the art, there is a big taboo in France, which is being a patron of the art means being a Rothschild or someone very wealthy, belonging to a social and cultural elite. I'm not concerned. I'm not a patron of the art. Or they would think that being a patron of the art is being a sponsor, a corporate sponsor mainly. So we had to create an experience starting from nothing to create this desire to get involved financially in another way. So I'd like to show you the two different approaches we used. The first one is really working on a very targeted, specific approach, which is very much inspired from the Anglo-Saxon model. The other one I talk about is a unique experience that just happened at the Louvre, and that goes far beyond any experience we could have had so far in France, and I think in the world, regarding raising funds towards individuals. So the first thing we did was have a segmented approach and create a very targeted program that would reach out for individuals, but a specific group of individuals. We created the Young Patron Circle. I'm looking for the magic button. Here it is. The Young Patron Circle, what does it mean? It's a group of people who pay an annual membership, but it's a membership that's a very high financial contribution. It's a €2,000 contribution a year. So it goes really beyond regular membership. You have to get involved further financially. It was the first of its kind in France, and being a young patron means really addressing specific age group from 26 to 40 years old. So we really created a sense of a community. And the idea behind this would ask me, why creating a young patrons and not a patrons group? The idea precisely was to address this communication issue we had about philanthropy, regarded as belonging to a social elite or the older people. We chose really purposely the name of the program. We could have thought of many metaphorical names like the Mona Lisa group, the pyramid group, the pyramid circle, or something that would evoke the museum. On the contrary, we really chose to name the program Young Patrons so that people would be aware that first they can become patron of the Louvre, and it's not reserved for already old patriarch or prominent art collector. And we wanted really to rejuvenate philanthropy, give a breath of fresh air on this specific involvement, make it a bit really new, a bit rock and roll. And this is how we built this program. And coming back to seduction, which was the first word I was using, when I showed this project to the Louvre director, Henri Loiret, I said, we're creating this young patrons group. It's going to be very dynamic. We're going to gather entrepreneurs. It will rebrand the Louvre's image, less dusty, younger, innovative, very open-minded. And it will be gathering young men, young women, and we know how to target them. And he said, oh, that's great. Then let's go, let's do it. It's a risk, but I want to take it because I have a daughter I have to marry. And through that group, she might find a husband. I was there, okay. I got the job. Seduction was the trick. And of course, it still is a membership program, but we really tailored this membership so that we would meet the needs of this specific category of visitors. They were mainly very active young professionals that had no time to come to the museum. They used to go to the museum when they were younger, and they used to love it. But as active professionals, they had no time to go, or they were afraid they would have to queue. And so they had become non-visitors. And we offered them, through this program, a really range of events that were set on a schedule that they could attend or not in small groups, so that they would not have themselves to build their own cultural program. And it meant visits to the Louvre, but also out of the Louvre, some trips abroad, and trying to show the diversity of art within the Louvre and in a broader environment. The idea also was to create a more intimate relationship, not only with the collections, but with the actors of the museum. And we found out that people are really curious to know what kind of jobs are in the museum, not only the curators, but the people who do the restorations, the people who build the social and pedagogical programs. So closer link not only with the collection, but with the people working within the museum. And the second thing we worked on, a big motivation, is being part of a community. Here we had a very coherent community, as I said, up-and-going young French professionals, entrepreneurs. They were sharing the same passion for the Louvre, sharing the same problems of having too busy life, and we were giving them a breath of fresh air. And it was a really strong urban community that really was emulated, and they were so enthusiastic about the program that they became the ambassador of the program. So we had very little advertising to do about that, because we focused on satisfying their desire, and they would themselves engage other people to join from the same age group. So this was still a very confidential approach, very targeted to a specific group. It's met its goals. I mean, it's raised annual revenue for the Louvre. It's annual revenue devoted to contemporary art projects, which was in the same idea of bringing a breath of fresh air to the museum, being innovative. And it also met its long-term goal, which was to identify within this group people with the potential to become bigger contributor, bigger donor. And one of them, a young one, he was 37 at the time, gave a €1 million gift to the museum. So it's really worth creating small communities with a contribution that could really get much higher if you get to know the person and really release the potential of the institution. So we created other patrons groups, which I'm not going to talk about, and which are less special than this one. But then the challenge was to reach out for a broader audience. And this was difficult, as you know, because we had no database to start from. We had no one to cultivate in that sense. And we achieved this goal to reach a broader audience very recently by organizing, launching the first French public appeal to acquire a Renaissance masterpiece, which you'll see here, and it all comes back to seduction. Here you are. This is a masterpiece from Lucas Cranach the Elder, which is a German painter. It had always been in private hands, and for the first time it was the owner wanted to sell it. The Louvre wanted to buy the painting. The cost of the painting was a €4 million investment. So we started, as we usually do for major projects, look for corporate sponsors to make big gifts. And we managed to raise €3 million in several months. And we had 3 more months left to raise the missing €1 million, and none of the corporate sponsors would give more. Probably the crisis, the economic crisis, was one of the reasons they didn't want to get engaged, because there were probably more priorities in terms of cause to sustain, and they would say, no, we don't want to get involved in this project. So we had several experiences of asking money online for the museum for specific little projects, little restorations, €10,000, €20,000. And we had very good responses. We managed to raise our goal, so we thought, why not take the opportunity of this fantastic painting, of a deadline approaching, to try and engage the French population in this specific project, engage them financially. And it would be a great opportunity not only to be able to acquire this painting, but to create this awareness of the possibility to make a gift of money to a museum. Because to be very honest, at the beginning of the campaign, we were really unsure about the results, and we thought, it will be a test, very experimental, but we'll make it public, this campaign. We'll design the campaign with a message towards individuals, but in the end, what we expected was that the corporate sponsors that had not responded in the first time, seeing that it had been broadcasted, would join the project and make big gifts. And the story was completely different, because at our own amazement, people, the French people, responded massively. And in less than a month, we had raised the missing million euro. We had raised this euro from more than 7,000 people. And by the end of the official campaign, which was a 3-month campaign, we had raised 1.5 million euros. It was really unprecedented, and I don't think anywhere else in the world such a campaign, targeted campaign for a specific project, has really been able to motivate the people in such a short amount of time for such a big goal. So I won't go on the chaotic process that we underwent at the Louvre, especially my team, which is a very, very small team. So we had to hire interns and process the gifts coming in every day. And I have to say, most of the gifts were still checks, even though we had an online platform. Because I think people, even though they're familiar with paying some things on the internet, when it comes to making a gift, a donation, the check probably is more tangible. So they would send a check, and we would have to process that. But what I like to highlight today is maybe the keys for success. Why has it been such a success? You would say the Louvre is a fantastic brand with a fantastic notoriety, but this does not do the whole thing. I think the cause itself was very unique. This painting, of course, is quite appealing, and this is the reason we took this opportunity. It's immediately appealing. But beyond the painting and the quality of the painting, it's for the first time we were asking money for a tangible cause and a very positive cause, a happy cause, unlike, other public appeals for traditional causes like social cause, environmental cause. Here we had a cause related to aesthetic emotions, pleasure. And I think this is something that really struck the people, and they went for it because it was so new. The second thing is we really worked on a very strong marketing and communication plan. We only had three months to work on that, because we launched the campaign in November, and we really decided to go for it at the end of the summer. So we had to be very, very, very innovative and quick, and we tried to focus on the impact the gift would have. So we built a very straightforward message. This is the base of our communication. This was on the little leaflets that were on display in the museum. This also was printed in newspapers, daily newspapers. So as you can see, well, for those who read French, but I'm going to translate, we really had a straightforward message, very simple. And I think we talked about being simple, and it's probably the key of success. Simple in the messages you get, straightforward. It says, to acquire Les Trois Grâces by Lucas Cranach, a masterpiece of a Renaissance masterpiece, the Louvre Museum needs you. It was that simple. Needs you. For the first time, a need was expressed, and it was a personal invitation. Needs you. It's you, me, everybody. I'm not going to sing the song, but that was it, a personal invitation to be an actor, to participate in the Louvre's life. This was very, very new. And you can see we built a slogan for the campaign, Tous mécènes, which could be translated into you can all become a patron of the art, engage in that. It's hard to translate, but the idea really was to break a taboo, giving the idea that small individuals would be able to sponsor the art. Even if you give a little money, if you give a little amount of money or a big one, you're part of the story, and your gift will make a difference. This was very important to us, and creative, a collective feeling too. You can all. So we really wanted to build this idea of a social cohesion towards one same target. We also focused on showing the people how immediately useful the gift would be. We thought it would be important to do that, because some people said, well, art, there are other more important causes to fund. But we really emphasized the deadline we had. We had only 3 months. If we don't, and it's important to, if you don't give, and it's important to give reasons to give, but also reasons why you shouldn't say you shouldn't give. So we said, we really emphasized on the danger, the risk that was implied in this campaign, and we phrased it that way. If we don't raise €1 million, then there is a risk that this painting might never be on show, never be on display, because it's always been in private hands, and it's probably gonna be bought by another private collector. So there is a risk it might not be shown to the public, you might never see it, and there is a risk it might leave the country. So we were working on those two phases of danger, and on this idea to make really art accessible, but accessible thanks to the visitors themselves, which was a very new idea. We worked on various materials. We didn't have that great of a budget to begin with, because the campaign was not planned. So we had to do with the budget, the things we were already budgeted. But still, we managed to engage a web designer who offered to work on the project, and who did this as a gift in kind. We paid very little money for this website, which was absolutely spectacular and really embodied the Louvre aspiration to engage everyone. So it was just to pay attention to very small things, but which were important to engage the people and make the campaign dynamic. You can see on the top left hand this little eclipse thing with I donate inside, and under it you have the amount of time that was remaining to gather the money, so to create a sense really of an urgent, immediate need. And we also had, it's not, you can't see it, I'm sorry, in here, but we also had done the same thing with the amount of money that we had already raised, because we were sure that, and it really worked, that success and the beginning of success would bring and emphasize success. And it really worked, because when you see the figures of the campaign, we had a really large amount of gifts made at the very beginning of the campaign, and at the very end of the campaign, when we said we've raised 80%, there's 20% more, and people really engaged to make it a great success. We also invited, and it was important for us, the people, the donors, or the visitors, or anyone, to make comments on a guest book, which was online. And this was really a strong idea, because people then who went on the website could identify maybe with the motivation of the people who had already done a gift. We also worked on the new social media, or this is just a website, the Louvre website, and of course we had strong communication, and it was pointing towards the website. But we used Facebook too, and it proved to be quite a good choice, because most of the people who came to visit the website came through Facebook, actually. This is one of the figures we had. And we also worked on more traditional materials, such as banners in the museum, posters, emails sent to people in our database. And I'd like to come to the press strategy. We had no real press strategy at the beginning, to be honest. We had planned to do a press release. We were unsure of the success of the campaign, because it's a German painter, after all. What would the French care for it? So we had decided to go really in a very modest way and just do a press release. And we were in touch with Le Figaro, which is one of the daily newspapers in France. But that was about it. And in fact, the campaign was launched just before a weekend. There was a first article in Le Figaro, and then a whole week of huge broadcasting. TVs, radios, press, everyone was going to speak about the project. And because it was very new, and this is something I like to emphasize, because they had material to speak about. And it was a great asset to have our director, the curator in charge of this acquisition, make time for interviews and make time for explaining the project. So the press really enjoyed that, and enjoyed, of course, the fact that it was 3 naked women. And they really worked on that, of course, and the idea of the grace, and it was probably good material for them. But we had this little press strategy which proved to be really a big success, and this is just a hint at a caption that is in another Le Monde, another daily newspaper, and you see President Sarkozy, who has fallen in love with the 3 graces, and regardless of the economic crisis and the economic problems, and you can see the 3 graces very shrinking on the right, and the European Committee trying to take away Sarkozy from what had become a national cause, and I think it's what we're talking about. It went really beyond just acquiring a masterpiece. It had gone to a very collective, strong participation in something related to art and the necessity of art in our world. Something that really was on our mind at the beginning, and that proved to be really efficient too, and is part of our job as a fundraiser, and is maybe more important than the asking, is thanking, giving thanks, thanking the donors. And we really worked on the acknowledgement of the gift and expressing gratitude. So we did it through the press by putting those ads in the press. And we also did it through specific scenography. The painting, indeed, is very small. Here you can have an idea of the size of the painting. But we decided to put it on display for 3 months in one of the most prestigious galleries in the museum, the Rubens Gallery, as you can see here, in a specific scenography, so that it would be a special exhibition and make it quite special for the donors. But the really newest idea we had was to thank personally each donor. We wanted to engage them personally, to thank them personally, and the best way we found to do it, apart from the thank you letter that we sent, etc., was writing their names on the museum walls, as we do for patrons, for great patrons, but some of those had given €1. Regardless the amount of the gift, we decided we would write the names of the donors in one of these halls that goes to the gallery we've just seen. And I'm sorry, it's not really visible, but we put back the slogan, you can all become patrons of the art. We put the names in alphabetical order in a disposition that would be as a nice page of a book. We didn't want to do a list, we wanted to do something new, and maybe give the idea that all together those donors had written a new page in the Louvre's history. So this would really embody this idea. And we also had the idea of engaging people personally by allowing them to make the gift, to dedicate the gift to someone else. And this really proved to be a very good idea. As you can see on the top right hand, the typography changes, and it gives the name of the donor and the name of the people to whom the gift is dedicated. And this was meant to give a more human approach to the gift. And through the testimonies we really had the strong feeling that each gift was linked to a very personal story. Some gifts were dedicated to grandchildren, others were dedicated to grandparents, some were dedicated to the art, some of them to Cranach. And so it's very hard in this campaign, we can't really segment the people or target anyone. It's a different story that led them to the Louvre. Most surprisingly, some of the donors we met had never come to the Louvre. So when we think that we were talking about engaging the visitor to a further commitment, well, your donors can be people who actually have never come to the museum, but make gifts for what it embodies. And now we're working on how to make those people come to the museum and become members. We're working the reverse way. So we made really this historical moment. So maybe to conclude on that and answer your questions, because there are many aspects I've not talked about, but it revealed for the first time a huge potential. It was a communication issue as well as a fundraising issue. And I think people now in France are aware of the fact that they can make gifts to a museum, and this was a great, really a milestone, I think. It really opened mentalities, and it led the way to other museums, maybe smaller museums, but they can work in that path now, and I think this is a great achievement, giving this new approach, participative approach to the museum. And I think also that it all goes back, it's what we learned from the testimonies of the donors and their motivation. It all goes back to what we've been expressing through presentation or talks, that even if it's asking money, it has to do with basic principles related to art. Art is about sharing, and people were really happy to be part of a community of donors. Whether it's a membership program or it's an appeal, a broad appeal, they enjoy the fact that they're part of art lovers, of people who really, really enjoy museums. It's about bringing people together, and it's about also making collections accessible in the idea of the Cranach, because it's only because of this very strong collective mobilization, engagement, that it worked. And it created a huge sense of ownership too, which was very strange. Collective ownership. A dream had come true. Everyone can own a little bit of a painting. So art is about sharing. Art is essential in life, and we had those people who sent us letters saying, "We have no money. We make a very small gift." It was a 10-euro gift, but it is to say how art has been or is essential in our life to overcome difficulties. This was very moving and touching, and I think this operation was very rewarding in the sense that the donors themselves were saying thank you. They were saying thank you, and for a fundraiser, it's the most rewarding thing. You usually are the one who says thank you 10 times, so that you can acknowledge the gift. They were saying, no, thank you for asking. Thank you for asking us to participate. And this is a strong idea I'd like to finish on. Don't be afraid to communicate about your financial needs, but you need to do it in an inspirational way, in a creative way. You need to tell a story. We told a story about this painting. We created this a scenario with an ending that could be a happy ending thanks to the donors, but tell a story that has to do with emotions, because it's really what the artistic experience relies on. Thank you.